a lot of times people confuse marketing and branding, but they're not the same thing.
No, I mean, they're not. I could see where it would be confusing because a lot of times when you think of that, I don't know, it's like it's a whole realm. If people aren't in the marketing space or the branding space, they hear one or the other and they just assume, okay, it's all ads. It's what you see on TV. It's, it's a logo. And I think there's a huge difference. So
Yes.
what would you say the big difference is?
Branding is a long game. Your brand is always going to be your brand. Over time, like your marketing tactics and strategies change. Your brand is always going to be your brand. That's more of a long-term strategy. And I think as we were talking this over, you brought up Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, well, I was just listening to an interview on Story Brand. I was talking to the guy that started all of the Chick-fil-A. He was the head of the marketing, created the cows and all that. And one of the things that they were talking about was the philosophy that Chick-fil-A has as far as a lot of times when you're putting your business plan together, people will, the two main things they focus on is the value to the shareholders or maximize your profitability. But when you do those two things or you focus on those two things, basically that value or that maximum profit has to come from somewhere, and it creates a winner loser type situation because generally it comes from the consumer. So when you come into a regular restaurant, there's a target on you saying this person has $20, and the person that's behind the register, their goal is to get as much of that $20 as they can. Well, Chick-fil-A took a different approach on it, and their whole mission statement was to provide value to the customer, and that's part of their brand. That's part of a lot of the things. Like when you go into Chick-fil-A, to me, I always think of the branding is different from marketing in a sense that the brand is how you feel about a company. When you hear the name, you see the logo, it creates a feeling. Marketing is the approach, the direct approach to try to motivate somebody to get them at that point in time.
Yes.
So when you think of Chick-fil-A, you think of My Pleasure, you think of clean restaurants, you think of happy employees. I mean, really, you don't argue. I've never seen an argument or fight. It's very rarely, and even like when you see the ads on TV now, it's never really about the chicken. It's about how the customers feel. They always put the customers first, and they're making their whole environment, their whole mission, everything that they do is about customer first, customer centric.
And that's the branding.
That's 100% branding, even though it runs into marketing. So there's places where they blend, where I think marketing is always associated with the brand. So it's always the feeling. You always want to make sure you're consistent with what your mission statements are. It's like a hierarchy, but it is the long play, just like what you said.
Grow, because your brand will grow. Chick-fil-A was not always known as the Chick-fil-A that we know it today. And I asked you, about how long did it take Chick-fil-A to get to where it is now?
Yeah, in that podcast, it basically said for them to make their first billion, it took them 30 years.
30 years.
And to make their second billion, it took them the following year.
Yep.
So it was, once they got, it's a roller coaster. So they kind of figured it out once they kind of got rolling with it. But, to me, it's a little bit like the chicken or the egg. Which one do you put your focus on? Because without having the right branding, without having that core mission, a lot of times you miss the point with marketing. Mm-hmm. But marketing is what generally drives the revenue. So it's like, man, you really almost have to push a lot of them together. And, sometimes with branding, especially with social media and stuff like that, getting out there and being organic, but really the core thing you should do before you start any of the marketing is define those values.
Yes.
Understand exactly what you want to do, who you want to accomplish, your core audience, and how you're going to benefit them, because I do believe that is going to put you in the best position to win every time. If you can focus on how your product or service solves their problem or helps that person or becomes the guide to they become the hero, essentially. If your product or service can deliver that to them, then you'll win every time. And then it's all about telling the story. That's what marketing is. And, the branding is the feeling that you give. It's the voice of that story. So how it's going to be narrated is kind of the brand. And then the story itself is your marketing.
That's a really great way to put it.
And again, this goes into a lot of things. I try to research a bunch of stuff about, the best way to help our clients, our customers. And when you're looking at different things, because it's hard to, especially when you're in the driver's seat of your business, and you're trying to think about marketing, all you can think about is, oh, well, this product sells great. Well, why does it sell great? And their answer is always, oh, because it has this, like this many calories or this many things, which really isn't. It's a feature set, and they always focus on the feature. I had a problem doing it for a long time too, when you really have to shift to the benefit. And then you have to, now that you know what the benefit is, you have to focus on that customer, because it really starts with the customer and the problem you're solving. And I think that's really the core of every strategy. Needs to start with your customer, how you're going to fix their problems, and then how you tell the story to do it. And your brand is going to be the voice of that story.
Yes, your brand is going to be the voice of that story, and I think it's so important for young entrepreneurs and young, fresh business owners to realize that there's no way your brand can be built overnight. It is a long-term strategy.
It's a slow play. You got to really kind of focus on getting it done. And I think the best deal to help you with that is to stay with your core values, stay with who you are, because essentially, I feel like I'm the same person I was a long time ago, at least as far as my core brand goes.
And you've grown since then, yeah.
How I treat people, how I look at life, and the perspectives I take. I've tried to always be the same way, and I guess my parents instilled that brand in me, and that's something that, as far as my personal brand, I don't think would ever change. My wife has changed my brand a little bit and made me look a little bit better, probably. But, I think that's for her own personal sake. We all go through life's changes, but if you stay with the core of who you are, and the core of why you wanted to do this business, and if you're, if you're looking at your business model as just generating revenue, you're not going to win. It has to be based off of the audience that you're going to serve.